1. We're taking a look at a classic 1949 Ford Custom Deluxe that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller is asking $12,500 or best offer for this piece of automotive history. According to the listing, this 49 Ford has been driven 78,000 miles and comes with a clean Florida title. It's powered by a flathead V8 engine paired with a 3-speed manual transmission, which should make for a fun driving experience. The exterior is finished in a nice shade of red, though the seller doesn't mention the condition of the paint. Inside, the interior color isn't specified, but based on the era, we can assume it's likely a complementary color to the exterior. The seller notes that this Ford Custom Deluxe has had 2 owners and is currently paid off. Now the important question is, what about the overall condition? Well, the seller states that the car is a nice driver and pretty solid. They also mention that the vehicle has no significant damage or problems. However, it's important to keep in mind that terms like nice driver and pretty solid can be subjective. For a 73-year-old car, it's expected to have some wear and tear. The seller doesn't provide detailed photos or mention any specific areas that may need attention. As with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to inspect the vehicle in person or have a trusted mechanic take a look before making a decision. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic 1949 Ford Custom Deluxe with a flathead V8 and 3-on-the-tree manual transmission, this could be an interesting option to consider. Just be sure to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making an offer. 2. Let's talk about this eye-catching 1971 Ford Mustang that's currently listed for $12,500. Being completely honest with you, this classic has some interesting aspects worth discussing. The heart of this beast is a 351 Cleveland engine, paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission, and it's showing just 31,000 miles on the clock. What's particularly interesting is the aftermarket cam that gives it that classic muscle car chop. You know, that distinctive rumble that turns heads at stoplights. Let's be upfront about the exterior. It's not perfect. The blue paint shows some chips and bubbling in places, but that's pretty common for a 50-year-old car. The good news is the body is straight, which is crucial for any classic Mustang. Recent mechanical improvements include a new Edelbrock carburetor, fresh front brake pads and rear drums, plus it's been properly timed and tuned with new plugs. The modern touch comes from a Kenwood Bluetooth radio, blending some contemporary convenience with classic style. For $12,500, you're looking at a running driving piece of American muscle car history. While it's not a show car, it's an honest example that could be either a solid daily driver or a great foundation for further restoration. The 2-owner history and the recent mechanical work are definitely positive points to consider. Remember, with any classic car purchase, it's always wise to inspect it in person and maybe bring along a mechanic who knows these old Fords. At this price point, you're getting a legitimate 71 Mustang that needs some cosmetic love but appears mechanically sound. 3. Let's talk about this 1971 Plymouth Duster that's popped up for $8,500. I'm going to be completely straight with you about this barn find that needs some attention. Originally discovered in a barn, this Duster's been through some changes. The original Slant 6 engine was seized, so now it's running a 306cc CI engine pulled from a 73 motorhome. Well, running might be a stretch right now. It's currently having idle issues and won't stay running. The seller suspects it might be the ancient carburetor, which is pretty likely. Let's talk transmission. The original one's showing its age, but here's a silver lining. The sale includes a matching 727 transmission for the 360 engine, plus some 318 heads from a 74 Duster. That's some decent spare parts value right there. The good news? It's got new headers, battery, radiator, tires, and the brakes have been serviced. The body's surprisingly solid for a barn find. No major structural rust, just some surface rust here and there. Inside, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The front seat looks like it lost a fight with some critters, but surprisingly, the back seat is in great shape. The green exterior gives it that classic Mopar look. For $8,500, you're looking at a project car that needs immediate mechanical attention. It's not a turnkey classic, but it's a genuine duster with potential. Just be prepared to tackle that idle issue and probably plan for a transmission swap in the near future. If you're handy with tools and love these old Mopars, this could be an interesting project. Just remember, you're buying a car that currently isn't running right, so factor that into your plans and budget. 4. Let's talk about this 1977 Cadillac Eldorado that's up for grabs at $4,000. I'm going to be completely honest about what we're looking at here. This is one of those rare moonroof models, which is a pretty cool feature for a 77 Eldorado. It's wearing its original mint green paint, and the seller's offering it in what they're calling fair condition, which is probably a pretty accurate assessment. Let's get real about what you're getting here. The car runs and drives, which is always a good start for a classic Caddy, and it's described as solid and straight. The seller's including all new fillers with the car. That's a big plus, because these parts are notorious for deteriorating on these models. Now, here's what needs attention, and you'll want to factor this into that $4,000 price tag. The top needs replacement, the interior needs work, and there are some general repairs needed. While that's pretty vague, at least they've installed new brakes, which is one less thing to worry about. At 100,000 miles, this big luxury boat has seen its share of road time. These Eldorados are known for their smooth ride and that massive 425 cubic inch V8 engine when they're in good shape. For $4,000, you're looking at a project car that needs some love, but it's a complete running example of late 70s luxury. Just be prepared to invest some time and money into making it truly roadworthy. These cars can be pretty spectacular when restored, but they're not exactly known for being low-maintenance vehicles. Remember, this is a 46-year-old luxury car that's going to need work, but if you're into these land yachts and don't mind getting your hands dirty, it could be an interesting project for the right person. 5. Let's check out this 1980 Oldsmobile Cutlass listed for $13,500. I'm going to give you the straight scoop on this classic G-body. The biggest highlight here is what's under the hood. We're talking about a freshly remanufactured 305 engine with less than 200 miles on it. They've upgraded it nicely with an Edelbrock intake and carburetor, hooker headers, and a full dual exhaust system with Flowmaster 50s. That's a solid performance setup that should give this Cutlass some nice rumble and punch. The suspension's been modified with UMI2 lowering springs and Monroe shocks, giving it that perfect stance. It's sitting pretty on those Luxor 1487 100 spoke wheels wrapped in white wall tires, definitely giving off that clean, classic street look. Let's be honest about the cosmetics. The blue paint is from a 1990s respray, and it's showing its age. The interior, while clean, has some wear, pretty typical for a 43-year-old car. But hey, they've modernized the interior with a Dakota digital dash featuring blue backlights, which is a nice touch. Some practical upgrades include a new brake booster and master cylinder that comes with the car, ready to install. The chrome trim is reportedly in really good shape, and those shaved door and trunk locks give it a clean, custom look. For $13,500, you're getting a Cutlass that's had some serious mechanical attention and tasteful modifications. While it's not a show car in terms of paint and interior, it's got the bones of a solid cruiser with updated mechanicals. These G-body Oldsmobiles have a strong following, and this one's been set up right with a good mix of performance and style upgrades. Just remember, you're buying a modified classic that's been built to drive and enjoy, not a pristine original. But for someone looking for a well-sorted Cutlass with some modern touches, this could be a pretty sweet ride. 6. Let's talk about this 1979 Chevrolet Corvette that's listed for $13,500. I'm going to give you the honest rundown on this C3 Vet. Under the hood, you're getting a 350 V8 pushing 270 horsepower. And according to the seller, it runs beautifully. That's a good starting point for a late 70s Corvette. With 87,000 miles on the clock, it's been driven but not worn out, which is actually good for these cars as they tend to develop issues when they sit too long. One notable feature is that it comes with glass T-tops instead of the more common fiberglass ones. That's actually a plus because the glass tops typically seal better and don't deteriorate like the fiberglass versions. The blue-on-blue color combination is classic for these C3 Corvettes. Now let's be upfront about the condition. The seller admits it's not show quality, and the interior needs work to reach that level. This is pretty typical for C3 Corvettes of this era. Their interiors often show their age, especially in the seat covers and dash padding. The good news is that the tires and wheels are reported to be in great shape, and it comes with some extras including a service manual, which can be really helpful for maintenance. Having documentation and lots of other goodies is always a bonus with these cars. For $13,500, you're looking at a driver-quality C3 Corvette that needs some interior attention but appears mechanically sound. These late 70s Vettas aren't the most powerful of the breed, but they've got that classic Corvette style that turns heads, and parts availability is generally good. If you're looking for a classic Corvette you can drive and gradually improve, this could be worth checking out. Just remember that you'll need to budget for interior work if you want to bring it up to show standards. These cars can be a lot of fun, but like any classic, they do require regular maintenance and care. 7. Let's talk about this 1968 Ford Country Wagon that's up for $7,500. I'm going to be completely honest about what we're looking at here. First, let's address the elephant in the room. The seller mentions a small fender bender that wasn't reported. While they claim it's purely cosmetic, it's always important to inspect any accident damage carefully, even if it's not on the vehicle history. Now, on to the good stuff. This wagon's packing a 390 FE engine, which is a robust power plant known for good torque. With 145,000 miles on the clock, it's seen its share of road time, but the seller claims it runs strong and was reliable enough to be their daily driver, which is pretty impressive for a 55-year-old vehicle. The red exterior with burgundy interior is a classic color combination for these old Fords. These country wagons were based on the Galaxy platform, which means they're substantial vehicles with plenty of room for family, friends, or whatever you need to haul. One thing to note, the seller mentions owing money on it, but promises a clean, lien-free title same day. While this isn't necessarily a red flag, you'll want to make sure all paperwork is properly handled before any money changes hands. For $7,500, you're looking at a running, driving piece of American wagon history. These aren't typically collector cars, but they're becoming increasingly rare, especially ones that are still being regularly driven. It's not perfect. It has accident history and high miles, but it could be a unique daily driver or weekend cruiser for someone who appreciates these old family haulers. Just remember to thoroughly inspect that accident damage and make sure all the title work is clean before proceeding. These old wagons can be great vehicles, but you want to know exactly what you're getting into. 8. Let's dive into this 1968 Cadillac Eldorado that's listed for $15,000. I'm going to give you the straight story on this classic luxury ride. This is one of those fascinating front-wheel drive Eldorados that Cadillac introduced in '67, and it's packing that massive 472 cubic inch 7.7L V8 engine rated at 375 horsepower. That's a lot of American muscle wrapped in luxury clothing. The white exterior with black top combination is a classic look for these cars. Let's talk mileage. The odometer shows 8,063, but it's rolled over, meaning we're actually looking at 108,063 miles. That's not terrible for a 55-year-old car, but it's something to keep in mind. Being honest here, the seller mentions surface rust around the trim areas, which is pretty common for these old caddies. These spots need attention before they become bigger problems, as trim rust can spread to more structural areas if left unchecked. The '68 Eldorado is a pretty special car. It represents peak American luxury from the era, with its distinctive razor-edge styling, hidden headlights, and that long, dramatic hood. The front-wheel drive setup was revolutionary for its time, especially in a luxury car this size. For $15,000, you're looking at a piece of Cadillac history that needs some cosmetic attention, but appears to be complete. These cars are known for their smooth ride and impressive power when properly maintained, but remember, parts for these specific models can be tricky to find, especially the unique FWD components. If you're considering this Eldo, you'll want to thoroughly check those rust areas and make sure all the complex systems are working. These cars had a lot of power accessories that can be expensive to repair. But when they're right, these 68 Eldorados are impressive machines that still turn heads today. 9. Let's check out this 1977 Ford Thunderbird that's listed for $8,700. I'm going to give you the straight scoop on this classic luxury bird. This T-Bird is showing just 75 in 800 miles on the odometer, which is relatively low for a car that's 46 years old. Under the hood, you're getting Ford's 400 cubic inch engine, not the most powerful engine of the era due to emissions regulations, but it's known for being a reliable cruiser that delivers a smooth ride. The silver exterior paired with that burgundy interior is a classic 70s color combination that really captures the era. These 7th generation Thunderbirds were part of the Big Bird era, when these cars were all about luxury and presence. We're talking about a full-size personal luxury car that's nearly 18 feet long. Now, the seller's description is pretty brief, which means you'll want to ask some important questions about maintenance history and any recent work done. These cars typically need attention to their climate control systems, power accessories, and suspension components at this age. For $8,700, you're looking at what appears to be a well-preserved example of 70s American luxury. These aren't typically considered collector cars yet, but they're becoming increasingly rare, especially in low-mileage condition. Just remember, while it might not have any significant problems according to the seller, any car from 1977 is going to need regular maintenance and care. These T-Birds are known for their smooth ride and comfortable cruising ability, but they're not exactly fuel efficient with that big V8 engine. If you're into 70s luxury cars and want something that stands out from the crowd, this could be worth checking out. Just make sure to give it a thorough inspection and test drive before making a decision. 10. Let's talk about this 1983 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham that's up for $4,500. I'm going to be completely honest about what we're dealing with here. First, let's address the elephant in the room. The car has an overheating issue, even after a recent radiator flush. That's a red flag that needs attention, as it could be anything from a simple thermostat to a more serious problem like a head gasket. In these old Cadillacs, cooling system issues shouldn't be taken lightly. Now, this Fleetwood comes in a pretty unique yellow color scheme both inside and out, which isn't a common sight for these luxury boats. With just 54,000 miles on the clock, it's definitely on the lower end of the mileage spectrum for a 40-year-old car. The seller's being upfront about the headliner needing replacement, a common issue in these old luxury cars. The good news is that the rest of the interior and exterior are described as being in really good shape. These 83 Fleetwood Broughams came with the 4.1L V8 engine, which, let's be honest, isn't the most beloved Cadillac power plant. They were known for some reliability issues, so you'll want to factor that into your decision. For $4,500, you're looking at a low-mileage luxury car that needs some immediate mechanical attention. The overheating issue must be addressed before this can be a reliable driver. On the plus side, these cars are known for their incredibly comfortable ride and luxurious features when everything's working properly. If you're considering this caddy, make sure to budget for fixing that cooling system and the headliner. These cars can be fantastic cruisers when sorted out, but they do require regular maintenance and care. Just make sure you're ready for the potential repairs that might come with an 83 Fleetwood. 11. Let's dive into this 1979 Pontiac Trans Am WS6 listed at $15,000. I'm going to give you the straight scoop on this classic F-body. First, the good stuff. This is a WS6 package car with T-tops. And importantly, all the glass is intact with no cracks. That's actually a big deal, because good T-top glass is getting hard to find. The seller reports no rust, which is fantastic for a 79, and they've done some meaningful recent work, including a new water pump, power steering pump, and a vintage air conversion. The car's sporting some serious performance upgrades with 411 gears and disc brakes all around. It's got power windows, a new stereo system, and fresh tires and rims. With just 20,000 miles showing, The mileage is remarkably low for a 44-year-old car. Now let's be honest about the challenges. The original Oldsmobile 403 6.6L engine needs a rebuild due to leaky seals. It's paired with a TH350 3-speed automatic, both original to the car. The seller was planning an LS swap before changing plans, which might not be a bad idea considering the current engine's condition. For $15,000, you're looking at a solid Trans Am that needs engine work, but is otherwise well sorted. The WS6 handling package makes these cars special, and the black-on-black color combo is classic Trans Am style. The seller even offers inspection on their lift, which shows confidence in the car's underside condition. If you're considering this Firebird, factor in the cost of either rebuilding the 403 or proceeding with an LS swap. These late 70s Trans Ams are gaining value, especially WS6 cars, but you'll need to budget for that engine work to make it a proper driver. This could be a great project for someone who wants a solid foundation to build on. The hard stuff like rust repair isn't needed, but you'll need to address the powertrain to make it a reliable cruiser. 12. Let's talk about this 1951 Chevrolet Deluxe that's listed for $12,000. I'm going to give you the straight story on this piece of post-war American history. This 51 Chevy comes with the Powerglide automatic transmission, which was pretty advanced for its time. It was actually one of the first automatic transmissions offered in a low-priced car. The seller reports it's showing 32,564 miles, though with cars this old, it's often hard to verify if that's original mileage. Let's focus on what we know works. The seller mentions that the lights, blinkers, and windshield wipers are all functional, which is actually pretty significant for a 72-year-old car. They say it runs good, but they're also calling it a great project car, which suggests it needs some work to be fully restored. The gray exterior gives it that classic post-war look, but the seller doesn't mention the interior condition, which is something you definitely want to check out. These cars typically came with either a 216 or 235 cubic inch inline-six engine, but the listing doesn't specify which one's under the hood. For $12,000, you're looking at what appears to be a running, driving piece of automotive history that likely needs some attention to be brought back to its former glory. These early 50s Chevys are getting harder to find, especially ones that are still operational. If you're considering this Deluxe, you'll want to thoroughly inspect the body for rust, these old cars are prone to it, check the mechanical systems, and verify what kind of restoration work it might need. The seller's open to trades, which suggests some flexibility on the price. Remember, when buying any car from 1951, you're not just getting transportation, you're getting a piece of history that will require specific knowledge and potentially hard-to-find parts to maintain. 13. Let's talk about this 1973 Cadillac Eldorado that's listed for $12,000. I'm going to give you the honest rundown on this classic luxury cruiser. This Eldo is showing just 30,600 miles on the odometer, which is remarkably low for a 50-year-old car. Though, as always with older cars, you'll want to verify if that's original mileage. It's sporting a green exterior with black interior combination, which was a classy choice for these luxury boats. Under the hood, you'll find Cadillac's massive 500 cubic inch 8.2L V8 engine, the largest production V8 ever put in a passenger car. The seller says both the engine and transmission are running smoothly, which is crucial because these powertrains can be expensive to rebuild if they're not. Some recent maintenance has been done, specifically 4 new Monroe shock absorbers, which is important because these front-wheel drive Eldorados are known for their smooth ride when the suspension is properly sorted. The interior is reportedly in great shape, which is significant because these cars came with lots of luxury features that can be expensive to restore. The 1973 model was part of the last generation of really big Eldorados before fuel economy concerns led to downsizing. For $12,000, you're looking at what appears to be a well-preserved example of peak 70s luxury. These cars were built to cruise in comfort, and while they're not exactly fuel efficient with that massive V8, they offer a driving experience that's hard to replicate in modern vehicles. Just remember, Even a well-maintained Eldorado from this era will need regular attention to keep all its systems working properly. But if you're looking for a classic luxury car with presence, this green machine might be worth checking out. 14. Let's talk about this 1962 Ford Fairlane that's listed for $9,000. I'm going to be completely straight with you about this classic Ford. First things first, this car currently isn't running. The seller's upfront about it needing a carburetor to get back on the road, so factor that into your plans and budget. While carburetors aren't typically too expensive for these cars, you'll want to make sure that's truly the only issue preventing it from running. On the positive side, some recent work has been done. There's a new gas tank, new tires, and a new battery. These are all good improvements, especially the gas tank, as old fuel tanks can be a common issue in cars of this era. The car shows 29,125 miles on the odometer, though as with any 61-year-old vehicle, verifying if those are original miles would be important. The white exterior with black interior is a classic color combination that suits these Fairlanes well. These early 60s Fairlanes were interesting cars. They sat between the compact Falcon and full-size Galaxy in Ford's lineup, making them a nice middle ground option. They're generally simple, straightforward cars that are relatively easy to work on. For $9,000, you're looking at a project that needs immediate attention to get running, but appears to have good bones. The Fairlane's clean lines and classic styling make it an attractive classic car option. But remember, you're buying a non-running vehicle that will need work beyond just the carburetor to be roadworthy. If you're mechanically inclined or have a good relationship with a classic car mechanic, this could be an interesting project. Just make sure to thoroughly inspect everything else while you're sorting out that carburetor issue. 15. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1951 Nash Ambassador I found on Facebook Marketplace for $2,900. This isn't your everyday classic car. It's one of those unique air flight designs that Nash was famous for, built right in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Let's be honest here, this car has some character and some issues. It's been sitting outside for 15 years, and the interior isn't in great shape. The clock and radio aren't working, and you'll need to keep an eye on your fuel level since the gas gauge isn't reliable. But here's the thing. It's still a running car with some really impressive features. The car's powered by a flathead 6 engine paired with a GM Hydra-Matic transmission, and remarkably, there's no rust in the unibody construction, which is pretty incredible for a 70-year-old car. The owner has done some important work: new wiring harness, new front brakes, fresh windshield rubber, and a rebuilt water pump. One of the coolest features? The seats fold down to make a bed that fits 3 people, and it even comes with the original Nash mattress. Plus, it's got that gorgeous Flying Lady hood ornament, which was optional equipment back in '51. With 82,000 miles on the clock, this green beauty with its beige interior is what I'd call a survivor. Sure, it needs some TLC, but it's a rare find with its rust-free bathtub shape. At car shows, this thing draws crowds. It's just got that special something that makes people stop and stare. For $10,900, you're getting a piece of automotive history that still turns heads wherever it goes. It's not perfect, but it's a running, driving piece of American car culture that you just don't see every day. 16. Let's talk about this 1963 Chevrolet Corvair I found on Facebook Marketplace for $3,500. I've got to be straight with you. This one's definitely a project car. This blue-on-blue Corvair has been sitting in a garage for the past 5 years, and it hasn't run for the last 2. The seller is upfront about its condition, which I really appreciate. It's got 94,350 miles on the clock, and while it has a clean title, it's going to need some love to get back on the road. Let's talk about the good stuff first. The tires are in good condition, and about 5 years ago it got some professional work done at Blackwell Auto, including carburetor work and new brake lines. That's a plus, but remember, it's been sitting since then. Now for the reality check. The convertible top needs replacement, and there are clearly other issues that need attention. The fact that it won't start is obviously the biggest concern. Being a Corvair, it's got that unique rear-engine, air-cooled setup that Chevrolet was famous for in these models. At $3,500, you're looking at an entry-level classic car project. The Corvair has an interesting place in automotive history. It was Chevy's answer to the Volkswagen Beetle. And despite the controversy stirred up by Ralph Nader's book, these cars have a dedicated following. This isn't a car you're going to drive home today, but if you're mechanically inclined and looking for a unique project car with character, this could be an interesting opportunity. Just make sure you go into it knowing it's going to need significant work to get back on the road. 17. Let's check out this interesting 1985 Chevrolet Corvette that's up for grabs at $7,500. This isn't your typical C4 Corvette. It's got some unique customization going on. First off, you're looking at a turquoise C4 with black interior that's been modified with some modern touches. Under the hood, you've got the 350 V8 with tuned port injection, and the seller's done quite a bit of recent maintenance. We're talking new brake rotors, fresh brakes, new radiator, spark plugs, and recent oil and transmission service. That's all good news. The car's got some eye-catching mods, including 20-inch custom 3-piece deep dish wheels with nearly new tires, and it's been lowered for that aggressive stance. One of the coolest upgrades is the C5 conversion kit, which alone is worth about $3,000 installed. You're also getting custom flush headlights and some blue interior lighting for that modern vibe. Let's be honest about the issues though. The removable top is included, but it's not in great shape. The rear hatch shocks need replacing, and there's a freeze plug that needs fixing. These are known issues with C4 Corvettes, and the seller's being upfront about them. On the plus side, the AC works, which is huge for a car this age. The windows function properly, and you get those nice 40th anniversary seats. With 110,000 miles on the clock, it's been driven but not abused. For $7,500, you're getting a Corvette that stands out from the crowd with its custom touches. It's not perfect, but it's a running, driving example that's had some significant upgrades and recent maintenance. Just budget for those few fixes it needs, and you'll have a pretty unique C4 Corvette that'll turn heads at car shows. 18. Let's talk about this interesting 1979 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray that's listed for $12,000. This isn't your average C3 Corvette. There's some serious muscle under that hood. The biggest talking point here is what's powering this beast. A 383-stroker motor that's pushing out a whopping 550 horsepower. The seller's got the receipts to prove a $13,000 investment in engine work done at a specialized Corvette shop in Canoga Park. So we're not just talking about backyard modifications here. What's really interesting is the mileage, just 6,000 miles showing on the odometer. Now with a built motor like this, those are likely miles since the rebuild, but that's something you'd want to confirm with the seller. Let's be completely honest about the condition. The seller admits the paint needs some TLC. It's wearing a blue exterior, and it comes with T-tops, which is always a fun feature on these C3 Corvettes. For $12,000, you're essentially paying less than the cost of just the engine build. This could be a great deal if you're looking for a high-performance C3, but keep in mind, you'll need to budget for paintwork to get it looking as good as it performs. One interesting note is that the seller is willing to trade for a 4-seater RZR or Can-Am, which suggests this might be a motivated seller. This isn't a show car in its current state, but with that 383-stroker under the hood, it's definitely got the potential to be a serious performer. Just remember, with 550 horsepower, this isn't your typical cruiser. It's built for serious power. 19. Let's talk about this 1957 Ford Fairlane that's up for sale for $15,000. This is one of those classic family stories, a grandfather's car being passed down, and you can tell there's some real history here. The car comes with a Continental kit, which is that spare tire mounted on the back. A classic 50s styling element that really adds to the car's presence. It's finished in red, and while the interior color isn't specified, these cars typically had period-correct two-tone interiors. Let's be honest here. The seller is upfront that the car needs a bit of work, though they mention it does run. With 100,000 miles on the clock, that's not surprising for a 66-year-old car. The good news is that the grandfather kept detailed records of all the restoration work he did, which is absolutely golden when you're dealing with classic cars. What makes this listing interesting is the documentation, having a stack of records showing the car's history and previous restoration work, is incredibly valuable. It helps you understand exactly what you're getting into and what's been done already. The seller seems to be parting with it reluctantly, which often means the car has been cared for, even if it needs some attention now. At $15,000, you're looking at a piece of American automotive history that could be a rewarding project. The 1957 Fairlane was Ford's flagship model that year, and while Chevy's 57 models tend to get more attention, these Fords are beautiful cars in their own right. Just remember, when they say it needs work, you should definitely inspect it thoroughly or bring along a classic car expert to understand exactly what you're getting into. But with those maintenance records and its family history, this could be a really special opportunity for the right buyer. 20. Let's check out this 1977 Chevrolet Monte Carlo Landau that's listed for $6,500 in Wickenburg. This is one of those classic American personal luxury coupes that defined the 70s style. Let's be straight about what we're looking at here. With 163,000 miles on the clock and having had more than 3 owners, this Monte Carlo has definitely lived some life. The seller's honest about the exterior. It needs some paint work, though they mention it still cleans up nice enough to drive. It's wearing black paint with what sounds like a pretty eye-catching red interior, which was a popular color combo for these cars. The good news is that it runs really good, according to the seller, which is always a plus for a 46-year-old car. The Landau version was the top-of-the-line Monte Carlo for $77,000, so you're getting the more luxurious trim level with the distinctive vinyl roof treatment. These second-generation Monte Carlos are becoming increasingly appreciated by collectors, especially since they represent the last of the really big personal luxury coupes before downsizing hit in 1978. They're known for their smooth ride and that distinctive long hood, short deck styling. At $6,500, or best offer, you're looking at an entry-level classic that needs some cosmetic attention, but appears to be mechanically sound. It's not a show car in its current state, but with some paintwork and TLC, these Monte Carlos can really clean up nicely. Plus, parts are generally pretty easy to find, and they're relatively simple to work on. Just remember to factor in the cost of paintwork if you're planning to bring it back to its former glory. But even as is, it could make for a cool daily driver with some serious 70s style.